Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games of last year. In a world filled with open world games that failed to switch up or tune the open world checklist formula, Ghost of Tsushima was a breath of fresh fucking air thanks to its beautiful world and dope combat. Sucker Punch's beautiful rendition of feudal era Japan enamored me, and yes, I did say enamored, from its opening minutes. The world Sucker Punch created was unlike anything I had ever played and, more importantly, seen before in gaming. Everything from the combat to the exploration to the lush visuals to the characters to the tremendous amount of booty was built with so much genuine passion and creativity that it was hard not to get lost in. Ghost of Tsushima was a game you lived in, where you were able to be that samurai and or ninja you always wanted to be. And it's abundantly clear, and thank God, that I'm not alone in my feelings for Ghost of Tsushima. Hell, there's no way this game would have become the fastest selling original PS4 IP, selling 5 million copies in only 4 months and surpassing 6.5 million copies sold as of March 2021 if there wasn't something special about this game. Almost a year later, Ghost of Tsushima returns with Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, an expansion that brings an entirely new island to explore with a wealth of new content for old and newer players, as well as a multitude of features specific for that sweet PlayStation 5. Now, that all sounds great, right? We have an entirely new island to explore, complete with its own storyline, and enhanced features for the PS5. In theory, that sounds like a slam dunk, but honestly, it's more of the same, and that's both a good and bad thing. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut does a great job of reminding me why I fell in love with this franchise to begin with, but at times, it feels too reminiscent of what came before. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's included in Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut that you wouldn't get in the OG version? Well, one, you get that fantastic base game complete with new gameplay, button mapping, and accessibility features. 2, you get the Iki Island expansion, which adds around 10 to 14 hours of new content and tells a more intimate and personal narrative about Jin Sakai's mental health. And 3, the Director's Cut includes exclusive PS5 features that enhance the gameplay experience, like that sexy, smooth 60 frames per second. Oh my god, you know what they say, once you go 60 FPS you can't go back. I'm like 99% sure that is an actual saying that people say, okay? You also get haptic feedback and adaptive trigger integration, which honestly isn't nearly as good as in Returnal and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, but I digress. 4K dynamic resolution and real-time Japanese lip sync. All of these are welcome features, but they're just okay, not amazing. Aside from the 60 FPS, I'm pretty sure I could have gone my entire life without having everything else included. Now it's time to talk about that that Iki Island expansion. The Iki Island expansion is the star of the show since all the new playable content comes from this vibrant new location. Iki Island visually stands apart from Tsushima proper due to its distinct geography and color palette. During my time in Iki, I trekked across rolling hills, climbed tall mountains, and ran across beautiful flower fields. And yes, this was all doable in Tsushima proper, but the terrain, mountains, fields, and surrounding islands are unique to Iki. Iki Island is special because it isn't a retread of what came before. It's an entirely new location that was built from the ground up to stand as its own entity. It's such a beautiful place to be in. Not to be dramatic, but I'm not afraid to say that Ghost of Tsushima is the most beautiful game I have ever seen. And the reason I say that with such unwavering confidence is because of its outstanding art direction that makes traversing this colorful world an emotional and meditative experience. The art direction continues to push the envelope when it comes to creating memorable and vibrant locations that you want to live and get lost in. Its willingness to play with color is what makes it stand amongst other games of its ilk. I can't tell you how hard it was to not stop and just stare at the world as I was playing Ghost of Tsushima. And speaking of exploring, that's still the most joyful aspect of this game. Being drop dead gorgeous wouldn't matter if there wasn't anything fun or meaningful to do in the world, but luckily, Iki Island embodies what makes Tsushima so special. Much like Tsushima, Iki is a place begging to be explored, where your curiosity is always rewarded. Regardless of what you do, be it clearing out an enemy camp or writing a haiku, you're constantly being rewarded for going off the beaten path. Hey, you cleared out an enemy camp? Here are some skill points. You completed a shrine? Here's a charm that boosts your abilities. You're always being rewarded with something. It encourages you to explore every nook and cranny the world has to offer. Exploration becomes even more meaningful on Iki thanks to these new points of interest scattered throughout that give us a deeper look at Jin's internal struggles. These specific locations have us relive certain story moments that continue to haunt and hurt Jin. as well as give us a more in-depth look at his relationship with his father and the guilt he feels about his death. Iki Island holds that fantastic sense of discovery that great open-world games like Breath of the Wild have. In terms of things you actually do, Iki Island offers familiar and new activities. We got your common side activities like clearing out enemy camps, climbing shrines, haiku spots that let you unleash your inner poet, hot springs that let you relax, and pillars of honors to find. New activities introduced are archery challenges, shrine riddles to solve, new animal sanctuaries where you play music for your animal friends, which once completed, allow you to pet the animals afterwards, okay people? That it makes this game a 10 out of 10, masterpiece, game of the year. While there are new things to do around on Iki, it's more of the same and fails to introduce anything that's dramatically different or interesting. There's only so many enemy camps you can clear or archery challenges you can do before it starts getting stale. It has the same feeling of been there, done that. The storyline of Iki Island is a lot more intimate and personal this time around as we dive into Jin's traumas and fears. The overarching narrative of the original game was about Jin becoming the ghost of Tsushima and his struggle leaving the old samurai ways behind in order to save his home. While there were some deep moments, nothing compares to the themes and moments that Iki Island has. This is a story about healing, where we see Jin struggle with guilt, fear, PTSD, and childhood traumas over the course of the 3-hour campaign. All of these struggles make Jin a more complex and relatable character in ways I never thought he could be. What sucks though is that because this is an expansion, the story feels rushed at times, and the narrative itself is only fleshed out by optional exploration, which can be easily missed if you're not thoroughly exploring Iki. This causes some of the healing and reflective moments to feel disingenuous because you have little context to why Jin feels a certain way during the main story moment when you don't do the optional portions. Without the optional parts, there's no room for crucial moments to breathe during the main quest, and as a player, we're flung from one quest to another. I love the direction of the story, but the execution can be sloppy, which is a huge bummer because it left me wanting to see more of this side of Jin and to explore more of these themes within this world. Combat is still as satisfying as I remember it. There's still that visceral and heavy energy to it that makes you, wait for it, feel like a samurai. What I've always loved about the combat system is how effortlessly everything flows together. Comboing different sword combos and stances and using your ghost weapons is as slick as it's ever been. New enemy types keep things interesting as they make combat a bit more challenging. Shamans enrage nearby foes, causing them to be more aggressive and deal extra damage. There are new warriors you'll encounter that will switch stances on the fly, keeping you on your toes. Stealth though is still bare bones, which is disappointing as someone who played stealthily 95% of the time during my first run. The stealth gameplay lacks the depth and versatility the swordplay has. While there are a number of weapons and skills intended for stealth, I don't have that same adrenaline rush and joy I do when I'm fighting someone with my sword. There is so much agency with the swordplay that it's a huge bummer that Sucker Punch didn't add any new skills or mechanics for stealth-oriented players. While Iki Island introduces a new skill tree to level up, it doesn't do anything to make combat more interesting, and it's all based around your horse. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my horse Kaze, okay? That's my day one. But the appeal of Ghost of Tsushima comes from living out your ultimate samurai fantasy. I don't think having a skill tree that's used mainly to ram your foes with your horse fills out said fantasy. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut brings new content to the table, but it also brings a lot of the old stuff. I get this is an expansion and not a full sequel, but I just can't help but feel there isn't enough new here, which just makes it very hard to answer the question, do you recommend this game or upgrade? And here's the honest truth. If you have never played Ghost of Tsushima, by all means, buy the Director's Cut. It's one of the best open world games in years and offers great gameplay, jaw-dropping visuals, a good story, and a fantastic world to explore. If you have already played the original, I don't think this expansion and or upgrade is 100% worth it. You're not missing out on anything too crazy or mind-blowing. Yes, Iki Island is beautiful and fun to explore, but the story is a little rushed and there's too much of the same stuff you did before. That's not to say Ghost of Tsushima proper is a bad game, but with a lot of great titles coming in the next few months, it might be best to save those $30 used to upgrade to the Director's Cut and just save that money for another game. Trust me, again, you're not missing much.